Welcome to Global Glimpse, your daily window into how law, power, and policy shape the world. In a potentially game-changing development for the global economy, the United States. Trade representative has confirmed that Washington and Beijing are nearing an agreement that could pave the way for a high-level meeting between former President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping. U.S. Trade Envoy Jamieson Greer announced the progress during a press briefing late last night, saying negotiations between the two economic superpowers have entered their final and most productive phase. This marks the clearest signal yet that months of tense back and forth may be giving way to compromise. Greer stated, "Both sides recognize that a stable, fair, and transparent trade relationship benefits not only our nations, but the global economy." The announcement follows weeks of closed-door talks in Geneva and Shanghai, where officials reportedly made headway on key sticking points, including tariffs, technology transfers, and access to agricultural and semiconductor markets. The stakes could not be higher. The U.S.-China relationship has been under extraordinary strain since Trump's return to power, with tariffs once again at the center of the standoff. Since August, both countries have imposed new trade barriers affecting over $200 billion in goods, rattling stock markets and slowing manufacturing output. Today's announcement suggests a thaw may finally be underway. Analysts believe a formal meeting between Trump and Xi could take place in Singapore or San Francisco as early as next month, depending on how final verification procedures unfold. A draft communiqué reportedly outlines commitments from Beijing to reduce industrial subsidies, strengthen intellectual property protections, and increase U.S. agricultural imports in exchange for phased tariff reductions from Washington. While neither side has confirmed the details, insiders describe the tone as cautiously optimistic. On Capitol Hill, reaction to the news has been divided along familiar lines. Republican lawmakers praised Trump's negotiating posture, calling it a bold return to America First trade leadership. Senator Kevin Brooks of Texas said, "This shows strength, not weakness. We're forcing China to the table on our terms." Democrats, however, have raised concerns about transparency, warning that the administration's approach could prioritize political optics over long-term strategy. Senate Majority Leader Maria Torres commented, "We all want fair trade, but secretive deal-making without congressional oversight risks repeating the same cycles of volatility we've seen before. For the business community, the potential breakthrough comes as a relief. U.S. technology firms, farmers, and exporters have been pleading for predictability as tariffs and sanctions squeeze profits." The Semiconductor Industry Association issued a statement calling the news encouraging, while the American Farm Bureau said even a partial rollback of tariffs could provide critical breathing room for U.S. agriculture. Markets responded quickly. The Dow Jones Industrial Average surged nearly 500 points in early trading, and the yuan strengthened against the dollar for the first time in weeks. Global oil prices also ticked upward on hopes that smoother trade could boost worldwide demand. Behind the scenes, negotiators are reportedly working through sensitive enforcement mechanisms. The United States insists on snapback provisions that would automatically reinstate tariffs if China violates the agreement. Beijing, in turn, is demanding reciprocal guarantees to prevent unilateral U.S. action. Sources say legal teams are drafting a bilateral review process that could help avoid past breakdowns seen during earlier trade truce attempts. International observers note that if finalized, this deal could become the most significant U.S.-China economic framework since the phase one agreement signed in 2020, but with more robust enforcement tools. Outside of economics, the talks carry deep geopolitical implications. Improved trade relations could ease tensions over Taiwan, South China Sea operations, and semiconductor supply chains, areas that have recently tested diplomatic limits. Some foreign policy experts argue that a Trump-Xi summit could signal a broader realignment, especially as Washington seeks to rebuild alliances in the Indo-Pacific region. Others remain skeptical, pointing out that economic cooperation does not erase strategic rivalry. Even if a deal is signed, competition between the U.S. and China will remain structural, said Dr. Elaine Redding, a Georgetown University trade scholar. The question is whether both sides can manage it without sliding into escalation. For everyday Americans, the potential breakthrough could offer tangible relief. Lower tariffs could reduce consumer prices on electronics, clothing, and farm products, areas that have been hit hardest by the trade war. Economists warn, however, that benefits may take months to materialize as companies unwind supply chain disruptions. Meanwhile, labor advocates urge policymakers to ensure that any agreement protects American workers. The AFL-CIO released a statement emphasizing that fair trade must also be fair labor, calling for stricter enforcement against overseas labor violations. As optimism builds, Trump himself has remained characteristically confident. Speaking briefly to reporters outside the White House, he said, "We're winning on trade. They know it, we know it. And now the world knows it." He declined to confirm any meeting date, but added, "It'll be very soon. It's going to be historic." Chinese state media echoed a cautiously positive tone, reporting that dialogue remains constructive and that mutual respect is the foundation of progress. Yet not everyone is convinced the momentum will last. Some analysts warn that unresolved issues, especially around artificial intelligence exports, data security, and human rights conditions, could derail final approval. The U.S. Congress will also have to weigh in if the deal requires new tariff legislation or enforcement funding. In Washington, lobbyists and legal experts are already preparing for an intense political battle over how the agreement is implemented. As this story unfolds, it underscores one undeniable reality. The U.S.-China relationship remains the most consequential bilateral partnership on Earth. Every tariff, every policy shift, and every handshake reverberates through global markets and affects millions of lives. Whether this new breakthrough marks the beginning of a lasting détente or just another temporary pause will depend on how both nations navigate the next few weeks. But for now, the world is watching closely, and the prospect of peace through trade has returned to the global stage. This is Global Glimpse, where law meets leadership, and every decision has consequences that ripple far beyond politics. Thank you for watching Global Glimpse, your daily insight into the power, policy, and people shaping America's role in the world. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that defines tomorrow's headlines. Stay informed, stay aware, and stay with us, because every glimpse reveals the bigger picture.